Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for joining me once again. You are always most welcome. Today we're going to be looking at the new Kotare, the Messerschmitt Bf109 K4, very kindly loaned to the channel by our good friend Stewart Neale. In fact, he's had this sent directly from Kotare in New Zealand straight to me so that I can get my hands on it as soon as possible, which is very kind of him indeed, very trusting of him. Let's hope we don't have any accidents or incidents now. We're not going to worry too much about the bags, because he said we can open the bags and I'll reseal them for him anyway. But I think he's going to build this for sure. Now he was more enthusiastic than I was about this kit, only because I was a bit sniffy about sometimes my choices are not everybody else's choices, and there was quite a few people I think agreed with me though that I felt that it was their brilliance, this company. It might have been better. It might have been better, more suited at the present time. They're doing all this Battle of Britain, Spitfire and Hurricane stuff. I thought it might have been better if they'd have done a 109E, the Emil from the Battle of Britain, which I think would have made a great set, you know, with the Hurricane and the Spitfire. So I think they missed a trick here, but we're going to put that aside. We're not going to judge it on that. That's just my opinion, really, and my preferences don't have any impact on how good or bad the kit is. So we'll ignore that, even though I just want to get it out there at the beginning. I won't let that come into my thinking at all when I open the box. But in the meantime, I want to talk about something very, very briefly indeed. Just a quick word about this. I'm sure many of you saw in the week that we lost one of the great legends of our hobby, Mr. Shunsaku Tamiya-san passed away sadly early on Wednesday morning, I think it was, and it's a real loss. I think I'm actually wearing my Tamiya black Tamiya badge. Let me make that out. Probably at the wrong angle, but just tilt it a bit for you. My Tamiya badge. Have I gone the wrong way? Well, there we are. But it's the black Tamiya badge, which seems very appropriate. This gentleman died at the age of 90, and for me, and I certainly got the impression that most of you are going to agree with what I'm going to say here. I'm going to talk about him separate. I'm going to do a show about Tamiya, another show about Tamiya. We may be doing another show about Airfix in the not too distant future as well, but we'll get to that later. But Mr. Tamiya, for me, was the biggest contributor to the entire hobby that was alive today, last week. Obviously not today now, sadly. But for me, he was probably the single biggest contributor to the hobby we all enjoy. And whether you like Tamiya kits or you don't, or you like their subjects or you don't, I mean, some of their subjects I'm not keen on, but many of them I am very keen on. I'm in the middle of building one at the moment, sort of. I will get it. The sad news of his passing has only made me more determined than ever to complete that Mosquito. It will be done to a high standard, I promise you. I hope it's high enough to justify, you know. I feel I'm obliged to go all in on that now, really. And that doesn't mean adding stuff. It just means the quality and the effort and the attention to details best I can, anyway. But I just think that we've lost an icon, really. It's like when Yoda died in Star Wars. I'm not trying to, you know, trivialise it with a thing about a fantasy fiction story, but you know what I mean. Someone who was so important in what we do and has had such influence, positive influence in what we do. I think he's going to be very sadly missed. And as I said, you know, he generated a company, he created a company that has generated so much joy around the world for millions of people, literally. Old, young, male, female, you know, people into radio control love him, people into construction kits love him, all sorts of other things, educational toys and things. So many things they got into, you know. And I just think that we've lost an absolute icon. I can't think of any one individual person in the entire world who was involved in this hobby who was more important than him, actually. And it's a very sad loss. So rest in peace, Tamiya-san, Mr. Tamiya. No more phone calls from him, sadly for me, obviously. The fact that I had that little jape a couple of years ago, just I hope it conveyed that the love and respect I had for him already when he was alive. I hope that came across. But it's terrible, and you know, and it's. I hope that this doesn't have any negative impact on that corporation, because they are They have had a bit of a quiet spell. I think a lot of people have been a little bit critical in the recent short term. They seem to have stopped the innovation, and they were just absolutely the cutting edge of it. You know, 10 years ago, wow, there was no stopping them. You know, when that Mosquito came out, it was another quantum leap forward. And it's sort of, on the construction kit side, it has dried up a bit since then. But we'll get into that in a separate show. I just wanted to respectfully say thank you very much, Tamiya-san, for everything you did for all of us. And I think there's probably nobody watching this that's going to think too much differently to what I'm saying. I think the contribution he's made is legendary, and I think that what a wonderful man, and what a wonderful ethos, and the way he seems to have led from the front and created a business where, you know, they, like some of the model companies, have good kits and then they have bad kits. Yes, Tamiya have had a couple of lemons, but you know, you're struggling to remember them. There's just a handful really over all those years, and he's been going for, what was it 95 years? Sorry, I'm exaggerating slightly, wasn't it? 85 years, I think, that the company's been in existence in one form or another, and really effective for about 75, 80 years. And it's hard to think of in any other industry where there's been such a market leader who stayed at the front so effectively and so well for so long, and was so loved, you know. And that's down to him, really. So I think we all say a very respectful thank you. I hope he rests in peace. And our very sincere condolences to all his friends and relatives in Japan and around the world. And I consider myself a friend, and I'm sure all of you are too. So, yeah. Farewell, Tamiya-san, and I hope the company goes on from strength to strength, building on his legacy. So thank you very much. Anyway, moving on. So, it's been a bit of a mixed week. It's been a bit bad week, and now good week at the end of the week, because the Kotare's arrived. So we're going to talk about that. And I have to say, there's a lot of influence from Tamiya in these kits, I think, as well. I think that a company like Kotare will certainly have been influenced by the quality that they saw from those guys in Japan, and are, if anything, developing on that to make themselves. Who knows what they'll develop into? But let's get into the kit and see what we think of it, because I kind of think we know what we're going to get in this. We're probably not going to get an engine, which always makes me grumble. I really wish they would put an engine in, because their quality's so high, you know, that an engine would be nice. I mean, I've even got an engine. Just before we get into the kit, several of you will have seen my recent montage video called My Greatest Hits, which I think finally shoots the fox of the many people who frankly can't be bothered to even do the most basic research on anything before they make a comment that is completely without foundation, suggesting I don't build kits and never build kits. Well, I think we've put that one to bed now. Yeah. I found it a little bit tiresome, and I thought it's time I reminded people, because the other thing is I've got quite a lot of new subscribers on the channel in the last year or two who probably haven't seen a lot of those kits anyway. I know the regulars, the loyal subscribers who tune in every week, you've all seen probably most of those. But there'll be quite a lot of people that haven't. And I could tell by the reaction I got, which was universally positive. I don't think I've had a negative comment I can think of at all to that video, which is unusual. And one or two of you have a good chuckle saying, "Oh, so you actually do?" And this was joking sarcasm, you know, from regulars. "Oh, so you do build kits, really? Oh, they're quite good, aren't they?" Okay, so thank you for the humour. And it was interesting hearing people's favourites, and there was quite a lot of variety, you know. Not always the ones you necessarily expect. Somebody was saying that he really liked the MiG-25, the ICM kit. Other people like the motorbike or the Lotus. So those all came out very highly. And the fan car, the Brabham fan car. And I suppose it's kits that those people probably haven't seen before. And I thought, wow, there's quite a lot, there's a lot in there, you know. But anyway, the point I was going to make when I started talking about my video, I'm not just trying to promote it, which I will. I'll put a link at the end over there. But was just to say that the Bf109 G6, the Tamiya kit again, and by the way, I'm digressing now, but I said this afterwards in my tribute to Mr. Tamiya, Tamiya-san. It really struck me, and I didn't think about this consciously until I'd finished that video, about how many of them were Tamiya, and it was a lot, and that's not actually representative of how many kits I've built. or the kits that are in my cabinet, because in the cabinet it's about maybe a quarter of Tamiya, a quarter Matchbox, quarter Airfix, and a quarter other stuff, you know, like AFV, Club and Meng and Fujimi and stuff like that. But a big majority of the best ones, builds, are Tamiya. And I think that is what I've said in the past about them, about the fact that they produce a very high quality kit. Some people think they're very simplified. I don't agree with that. I think that some of those kits you saw are not simplified at all. The Spitfire Mark 9, the motorbike, you know. What else do we have in there? And the Bf109E G6. Not G6, sorry. And this is the point I was just coming to in relation to the Kotare we're going to look at now. That had an engine, and it was only 48 scale, and they did it brilliantly. Now, I did add a little bit of, I think there was a little bit of aftermarket from Edward. There was a tiny kit you can buy that has all the engine ignition leads, which you probably saw. But that is the one point I'm making. I mean, I'm getting this out at the beginning before we open this box, because I don't want to go through this review and criticise them again and again for not putting an engine in. They haven't put an engine in it, and I'm disappointed in that again. I'm not actually going to mark it down. I'm going to judge it in terms of its quality and its overall appeal, because a lot of you keep saying, "Well, Peter, I don't want to do an engine. I just want a really nice kit in the cabinet, you know, the 109." Okay, but I would like to see Kotare. I just can't quite get my head around why they are so opposed to doing engines. Now, this kit, this retails around about the £100 mark. Just arrived in the country now as we speak. But if it was 110, 115, I don't think that would be too much. I mean, Airfix have just released yet another Spitfire. I won't go into what I think about that. But it's £120. It does have some extras in it, yeah. But that's a chunk of change for an Airfix kit. So if this was 100, we're not talking apples with apples. You've got to remember we're talking about two different scales, because that Airfix is 24 scale. I know. But the premium nature of this, as I think we're going to see in a minute, makes you realise that if that was £15 more, I'd pay it. I'd pay 115 to 120 for this if it had an engine, because it would be the best on the market. And unlike the Borders of this world, you know, it would have, I hope, we'll see in a second, it'll have instructions that we can understand. Anyway, without further ado, I'm sort of setting the scene, saying it's not going to have an engine. I think we just get that off on the table at the beginning, and I'm going to try not to score penalty points against it for that. I think to get a 10 out of 10, it's very difficult for me, because if it is as good as I think it might be, I may want to give it a 10 out of 10. But can you when it's got no engine? I don't know. £100 though, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I think I'll let you make your own mind up. So whatever I say at the end, you can mark it up a quarter or down a quarter, depending on whether you think it should have an engine. I'll leave it to you. You be the judge. Without further ado then, let's have a look at this. Kotare Messerschmitt Bf109 K-4. Now, what have we got? So, there's going to be a little bit of reading here, so bear with me. And there might be quite a lot of reading now. I might cut that short, because Kotare are so good. So good. They're too good with their data and their history. They give you quite a lot, and I could be here all day. I'll just read what's on the side, and I'll probably skip what's in the instructions. In 1990, yeah, I think it does give you the same as the first two paragraphs anyway. In 1994, the fame of the Messerschmitt Bf109 was assured forever in aviation history. Produced in vast numbers and operating in a dozen or more war theatres, the 109 had shot down more enemy aircraft than any other aeroplane. As the Nazi war machine ran riot in 1939 to 42, the 109 became the feared symbol of Hitler's regime and was justly renowned for its lethal attributes in air combat. However, by 1949, it was really starting to show its age, squeezing more and more power out of the Daimler Benz engine, had allowed the aircraft to remain somewhat competitive, but at the cost of worsening the handling on both the ground and in the air. The advent of the P-51, the Spitfire Mark 14 and the LA-7 amongst the new Allied aircraft resulted in the 109 entering combat with an inferior machine, a feeling they had hitherto never really experienced. Simultaneously, the proliferation of the 109G variants and manufacturers and manufacturers have resulted in a complex logistical challenge, both in terms of manufacturing and in support of its combat units. Messerschmitt was in bitter competition with Kurt Tank, and his Fokker Wolf 190D was about to enter service, whose apex fighter design, the TA-152, was already on the drawing board. The 109K was an attempt to rationalise production, improve performance and handling, and upgrade killing power with the MK-108 cannon. And in theory, hold the line until the incomparable ME-262 flooded the skies. Incomparable? Yeah, they make some very... I think they make some very flattering comments about the 260, and I'm not suggesting they shouldn't, but they seem a bit OTT. You'll see what you think. To this day, the K remains the aura of mystique, poorly documented in photographs in a war situation. As the war situation deteriorated, subject to decades of controversy regarding colour schemes. Oh, here we go. Oh, we modelers like that, don't we? Arguing about colours. And visually striking as an elegant but sinister war machine, the K commands the attention of any Luftwaffe modeller. Stewart Neale at the front of the queue. This Kotare kit is our first non-Spitfire and has captured the sleek looks. Oh, it's non-Spitfire. I should give some advice to Airfix. Oh, that just came out. I said that out loud in public, didn't I? Sorry, I'm just joking. The Kotare kit, our first non-Spitfires, captured the sleek looks of the K with the innovative mould design to capture the relationship between the exhaust and the nose shape correctly. Okay. The unique K cockpit has been rendered in as few parts as possible to speed up the build. Now, I'm not such a big fan of this, but we'll talk about it later. While still offering plenty of detail, the optional parts to allow for different build standards abound. Horizontal tailplanes, instrument panels, windscreens, tail wheels, and even uncommon fuselage inspection panels are catered for. Ooh. A carefully designed slat design creates a realistic transition from the wing top surface to the slat well, while allowing robust slat placement. That's cool. Because normally it's just a blanked off bit of, plastic, and it can look a bit crude on some of these kits. Although again, I think Tamiya did it quite well on the smaller scale. Anyway, exhaustive examination of the contemporary photographs and the commissioning of some research on an original 109G airframe has resulted in underwing panels being moulded in a realistic way for perhaps the first time. Okay. Kotare ethos can be encapsulated as ease of build combined with accuracy and subtle surface details. We hope you enjoy our Bf109 K4 kit as much as we have enjoyed creating it. Well, does sound interesting. I suppose that's what they've gone for, something that's a bit different that other manufacturers tend not to do. So, on the side then, this is kit number K32009, and on the side we have got 3 options for you in terms of colour callouts and decal sets. So, 3 versions. We have got the Black 28 Walter Kopp, which I think is on the Eastern Front January... Oh no, it isn't. No, sorry. January 1945. And then we have got Stab 3 JG52 Adolf Borchers, April to May 45. So we're right at the end of the war, of course, here. And then we've got the captured one with the American markings. USAAF. It was JG52 at Salzburg in May of 1945. Well, there we go. Right then. So I'm going to actually open the bags. Oh, really? I think he said I could open the bags. Anyway, I'll reseal them. If he doesn't see this, he won't know any different, but he will see it, won't he? Just joking. Oh, right, okay, we've got some extra, because he's one of the direct pre-order customers. He's getting some nice free 3D resin printed parts. Now, I do like the fact, I sort of pulled my nose up a little bit for a moment, didn't I? But I do like the fact that they give you not too many sprues and don't overface people. I'll just make my Tamiya stickers back over there. I'll talk about Tamiya another day. Yeah, I do like the fact there aren't too many sprues. Look, there's not that much plastic, but look at the way they pack it. Now, There are going to be a number of elements in this kit where I'm going to be saying this is how it should be done. So in an ICM kit you often get one bag or two, when we would prefer them every sprue separate. But to give ICM full defence, they pack it well and have it tightly packed so there's no play. Airfix on the other hand, don't sound critical of them because they've got enough problems at the moment, but they've just got no control, it seems, over how their bags are packed. They've got sprues that are all different shapes and sizes, all in one enormous bag with everything smashing and rattling around. And by the way, when I was watching Jason, good friend Jason at Model Kit Stuff, he was looking at these revised sprues on his Stalwart. Yeah, I'm still waiting for mine. That's another story we'll talk about again at the time of filming this, which is on Saturday morning. But he said he thought he had a short shot and he got one of the parts, I think it's the support for the flap at the front of the Stalwart, and he said, oh, short. And as soon as I saw it live, the first time I watched it anyway, I thought, no, I bet that's broken off. And he realised, yes, he found it later, it had indeed broken off. Same problem again, you know, huge sprues, several different sizes of sprue, all higgledy-piggledy, all thrown in a bag, and then we wonder why parts are flying off. I had my exhaust come off, didn't I? Not going to happen here, is it? Look at that. That's absolute state of the art. Every sprue is the same size, apart from the clear parts, of course, but every sprue is the same size. Conformity, universality, you know, which means they just need one bag size. Keeps things simple, doesn't it? Very interesting. So, we're going to start with the instructions. Now, this might take a while because I'll tell you something. You see how thick this is? Look at the size of this. I'm just going to pad out for a moment or two while you go and rush and get a cup of tea or a beer, glass of wine, whiskey, some snacks, crisps, whatever, because I think this is going to take a little while. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get myself ready while you're preparing your snack and drink. I'll move these out of the way. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I've actually not quite prepared myself in the normal way here. I'm going to just get my background so we can have a good clear look at this. I'm going to pop these over here, just out of the way temporarily. And we are going to do what I always do, which is start with the decals. And I'm going to have to cut my way into these. So I'm going to have to be a little bit taking my time. So this won't be a quick video, it won't be a short one. I can tell you that for nothing. And I owe it to Stewart to try and do this as carefully as possible. Extremely kind of him to lend us this kit. What have I got here? So I open the box rather eagerly. Go away. It's very kind of him to let us see it before he sees it himself. That's remarkable. Right, there we go. Put that there. So that's a nice clean cut which we can reseal for him, which is what we want. So, it's just popped out as is. What beautiful decals. Designed in Ireland. Printed by Cartograph in Italy. Designed in Ireland, okay. So we've got our traditional, you can see how they have cleverly designed this. So if you want the Nazi symbol, if you really do, well you really should if you want the accurate portrayal of the aircraft, of course, not for any other reasons. They've done it at the top, they've got the way of, and they're explaining there how to do it, I'm sure. Well, I think we can all work that out. So then we've got several bits of the fairly minimalistic stencils. It's not too bad, the stenciling. And you've got these, the big crosses on the top of the wing, and then on the side and the underside a slightly lower sort of low-vis version. And I'm just wondering about the way they've done these fat stickers actually. Because on the, I'm not happy with this actually. So on this one here, they've actually done it as a complete, so it gets in the light, see that? Here, they've done it as a complete decal, like that. Now obviously you can cut that up and make it right, or just wondering, maybe there's something, maybe these bars go across the centre, do you know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to dwell on this trust me. But it's strange the way they've done that, because that looks like a complete decal to me. So that's not the usual way of doing things. And I'm now realising that I was wrong, because I think these are not for the swastika. They are actually to produce your own white crosses on for the wings. So that, on the face of it, slightly disappoints me that they've done that. I think that's a mistake by Kotare. Why are they not doing it like everybody else does it? Where if they were separate and then there was a bit to link it in the middle, then you have the option of doing that. But I can't see that they have done that. I think that's a strange decision they've made. That's almost going down the Airfix route, not quite as bad as them in this respect. But why have they done that? Either do it or don't do it. Yeah. I mean, Airfix just don't do it, which annoys me. They're not the only ones. But I don't see why you can't do it like ICM do it, which is you construct it yourself if you wish to. What do you think? Anyway, moving on. Then we've got our sort of squadron markings, which are quite interesting. And then we've got, rather amusingly, which looks almost cartoonish, almost like done by a child, the American markings that they've put over the top of the German markings with American sort of stars and bars. It's almost like hand painted. You can tell it's very cleverly done. That's very good. I like that. Yeah, that looks really sort of real, or it will do in scale. You know what I mean? Isn't that clever? Then we've got our mini stencils. That's quite a few on the 109, of course. Yeah, there's lots of those. And then we've got this rather interesting for the tailplanes and the horizontal stabilisers, I think, at the bottom, which is quite an interesting pattern. I think that may be the American version where they're trying to cover it over. But we'll get into that in a second. So overall, they're beautiful. I mean, the actual decals look superb. They're quite a nice glossy stroke silky sheen to them. But the swastika thing, I think they've made a mistake there. I think that's going to annoy one or two people. It's not the end of the world. It's not a major problem, because you can always, a lot of us have got aftermarket stick your own on, but either do it or don't do it. Don't be doing that. That's like the show it on the box art. That's a bit silly. I know, a bit childish, really. If you're going to do something, do it properly. If not, don't do it at all. I mean, Airfix, as I say, I criticise them for that. But at least it's clear, you know what you're getting. But don't do this half-hearted thing, that's just silly. Right, then we get the full history, which I'm not going to read now because there's just too much of it, and it really does. I mean, there's probably 3 pages of A4 there. If it was put on, normal sheet of A4, not so tiny as it is here. If it was printed, like on your computer, that'd be 3 sheets of A4 at least. So the basics are, as we've discussed, it's got an slightly uprated engine, so they work miracles on the Daimler-Benz engine to ring up to 1,775 horsepower. That's a lot, isn't it? Actually, I mean, it's not Tempest or Typhoon mounts, but it's still a lot of horsepower from what is basically an engine that was kicking out about 1,100, 1,200 at the start of the war. 87 or 96 octane fuel. Wow, that's what we were using. Water methanol injection was standard, used to cool the fuel-air mixture in the engine cylinders and reduce any pre-detonation, allowing increased power for short periods of time. The methanol also stopped the water from freezing at altitude. Right, okay. Interesting stuff. The DB605D engine was the intended motor for the K-4, and the oil cooler and nose contours were designed to suit. Okay. In an attempt to improve the aerodynamic cleanliness, the outer doors were fitted with an enclosed main gear, and a retractable tail wheel was fitted. Ooh. They had reliability issues with the tail wheel, which was often fixed in the extended position, and the doors then wired shut, so that didn't work, did it? Oops. Okay. I wonder why. It can be seen by many as a development offshoot, an attempt by Daimler-Benz and Messerschmitt to develop a true altitude fighter, trying to tackle the US AAF bombers and the P-51s. The ME-109H proved abortive, and the competing Focke-Wulf TA-152 was a much better aeroplane. although it arrived too late to affect the course of the war. Yes, combat service, and it goes into lots of details about all the different theatres it was in. So in terms of the actual performance of the aircraft, it was wingspan 9.10 metres basically, a fuselage length of 9 metres, maximum weight of 3.4 tonnes. It's not heavy, is it? That's not heavy at all. It's only like a couple of cars today, because cars have got so heavy. Incredible. Okay, a couple of SUVs anyway. Maximum speed 440 miles per hour. So it's still only really the same as a Mosquito, isn't it? Even at this late stage. So there were Mosquito's got 2 engines, of course. They made around about 1,500 approximately, and production was August 44 to March 45, so a bit late really. Maximum ceiling 40,000 feet, 12,200 metres. Armament 130mm cannon in the nose, and then 2 true machine guns and 2 MK108 cannons on top of the nose. Right, so without further ado, let's get into the review and have a good look at this. Now I think those of you that are like me that hate, you know, the way these instructions get done. By the way, we've got some rather strange design on the. I don't always care for this thing about putting like a faux fading, because it is faux. It's not real. Faux fading in the paper design. We saw that on Tacom recently, didn't we, with the Das Werks. But what I do like with this, as you'll see in a minute, they do it only around the outside. They don't allow any of this sunny effect to get into the actual instructions itself. So let's take a look. What have we got? So, anything about swastikas? There's no mention of it. Just going to check something. Whether it tells you how to do those. 35, 36, 141. 141. Sorry, just bear with me. I'm just trying to see. Now, this swastika thing, I think they've made a terrible mistake. I think they're going to get marked down by me for that, because I think that's just a bit. It's a cop out. Anyway, let's have a look. So we've got the sprue mat, and there's obviously other versions planned because they've got some parts that look like you're not going to use them. Seem to be greyed out. Then you've got a really, really good colour chart where they're saying Tamiya, SMS, Mr. Hobby, Mr. Colour Lacquer, Mr. Paint Lacquer, Atom Acrylic, never heard of them, AK Gen 3 Acrylic. So a lot of the paints that we're probably using at the moment are there. Then we've got a complete guide to the cockpit with all the instruments. These are all done by Decals. All the instruments, including the ammunition counters, which is really cool, which are in the middle. Isn't that nice? Check that out. Let's go in a bit closer. Oh wow. Now this I like. That is very, very cool indeed. It goes on to say at the bottom, I'll just read this out to you because this is interesting. In memoriam, it goes on to say, which I think we should say this out loud. In memoriam, it is not possible to design and manufacture a kit set of a late war ME Bf109 without acknowledging the sacrifice of tens of thousands of concentration camp victims who died whilst being subjected to slavery by the Messerschmitt Company and the Nazi regime. Far more eloquent writers than we have detailed the horrors that afflicted these innocent people, and who, those that survived, were no doubt affected for the rest of their lives. There is nothing really exculpatory that we can say, except that it would be a difficult thing to build a business or create models of aircraft that only flew for countries with a completely clean ethical record. I agree, yes, fair comment. Perhaps the only rational thing is to hope that we all do our best to make sure no country ever again descends into the moral depravity of Hitler's Third Reich. Well said. I would just add though, why didn't you put the Nazi symbol on properly? Because that's the way you avoid returning to the Third Reich. You show it, don't you? There's no point in hiding it. I mean, that's a bit contradictory. Okay, I'll move on. I don't mean to be critical, so I think it's nice they put that. Now then, let's get into the meat and potatoes. It's almost like a disclaimer, that wasn't it? As you can understand, I think it's a fair comment. I think perhaps they should do that, but they should have also put, and that's why we've had to include the Nazi swastika, because it's factual truth, yeah? Instead of hiding it and pretending it didn't exist, which is foolish, which is what they've done, but anyway. Okay, cockpit, continue. Now this is absolutely wonderful. What am I always complaining about? Lack of clarity, lack of information. Not here. This is epic. Oh, look at that. What the colours should be. Where every single stencil goes. Look at the detail they've got into here. This is amazing. On the other side, look. Radiator cut-off handle. Oxygen control. Oh, that's just absolutely brilliant. All the tiny details are included. Then you've got your cockpit panel painting guide, showing all the colours, graphically showing them, in colour. What a beautiful thing this instruction book is. I'm already loving it. Strap was metal. Look at that. Even tells you what the detail of the actual of the materials are. Strap was metal. Look at that. And then you got all the various controls for your undercarriages and things on the side. Clear section of pipe be visible to the pilot in this slot. Represents clear stretch sprue. What is that? A clear section of pipe. Add tubing to represent the fuel pipe from the drop tank. Wow. Oh, look at this. Looks like we're going to have a moulded seat with belts. That's fantastic. I've started to forgive them for their swastika faux pas already. Look at this. So they're assembling the cockpit. I mean, I won't read it because you can see it yourself. I'm not going to read everything that's on the page, no point. Oxygen regulator. The back of the seat going in where the armour plate is. You've got the MK108 nose cannon breech, which goes right in front of either side of the, or in the centre I should say, of the pilot's legs. He has to straddle it. And then you've got modelers who want their own harnesses. You've got an empty seat option as well. Fantastic. Look at that. So the seat back is not padded, really? Gosh, it's not exactly like a modern Formula 1 car, is it, when they mould it to the driver? How amazing, I didn't realise that. I didn't expect it to be moulded to the pilot, I just thought there'd be a bit more padding. It looks completely rock hard. So that is the seat back. I just didn't appreciate that. So you just got a flat piece of metal as the back of the seat. Wow. Oh, I wonder they weren't having back problems. Flap control wheel. There we go. All the details are here. Radiator flap and cutout controls. Throttle and engine controls. Artificial horizon transformer. They're telling you everything. It's marvellous. Wonderful. That's what they want. This is what. So you're going through and you're learning about this aircraft and basically how it operates. You know what things do. It's an educational experience, isn't it? Putting in your instrument panel, which we saw at the beginning. Some leverage of the cockpit walls might be needed to get everything to click into place. Fair enough. In other words, yeah, perhaps dry fit it, test fit it, and then put your glue in at the end is my advice. Fuselage interior. Here we go. And then you've got your rear fuselage where you're going to have the allegedly retractable tail wheel. It sounds like they weren't very retractable on some of them. A bit unreliable. And then we've got the machine gun or the cannon barrel, which basically goes right up the centre, which is depicted. This is where I get a little bit disappointed, of course, because there's no engine, but what we've talked about already. Then we've got the other side of the fuselage coming in, and now we've got some of these wonderful photos which they intermingle with the instructions, which is so helpful. Saying on here, talking about the camouflage colours and how the cross should appear. Wow, you had some detail quite early, aren't they? And then you've got your the back of the cockpit here, where the radio was housed, I think. Photograph here showing the engine cowling with no armaments in it. Much effort was put into improving performance by smoothing over flush rivets. Many panel joins where mastic resin filler was used. Hey, how about that? A bit like the Mustang. Trying to get rid of the drag of the rivets, that's what they're trying to do, smooth it off. Fuselage exterior, and then we've got the lower the sort of chin under the cowling under the engine, where you've got your radiator, an oil cooler, then you've got your intake for your supercharger here on the side. Doesn't have a big filter on it like it does on the tropical versions, of course. How do they describe it? Many modelers will choose to paint and weather the faces of the oil cooler matrices before installation. Well, yeah, of course, I think so. Most of us would do that. So, there's a little strut that goes. That's interesting. It's a little strut here that goes in between the top and bottom of the intake from the radiator. How interesting. Some believe it was a drain. Some say it's there just for strengthening. How interesting. Okay. So there's, like they said, there's not a huge amount known about this aircraft. So they're very brave to take it on, weren't they? Really. Braver than some manufacturers who just seem to produce the same stuff every time. Now, here we've got the tailplane and the tail section with the rudders, and I think there's two variants here, if I remember correctly. No, sorry, there's two variants on the sprues, but there's only one you're going to use. And then you've got some really nice looking engineered parts here. The way they put it together looks like it's going to be really strong and positive. Putting your rudder in here looks all very straightforward, doesn't it? Tailplane detail, it says here, from late production K4. Note the fixed trim tabs on the rudder and elevator. Flettner tab and control rod on the rudder. Okay. And the small air pressure balance holes along the trailing edges of the elevator. Air pressure balance hole, okay. Open tailwheel doors. Trouble with getting the tailwheel retraction to work reliably resulted in these doors being fixed shut on early production aircraft, although this is sometimes also seen on mid to late production aircraft. So they obviously did have a bit of a long-term problem with it, didn't they? Then we've got the tail section continued, turning it upside down and putting your doors in here. Then we've got the rear tail wheel, and you can obviously have it. It gives you all the paint guide there, doesn't it? Wonderful. Yes, very clear paint guide. And then you've got the main planes and the wheel wells, complete with the spar going in here for the main gear area. A couple of holes to drill. Remove the R6 BSK16 gun camera fairing for all the options in this kit. So obviously there's going to be other versions of it. So there's a gun camera fairing that needs to come out. Remove it with a scalpel. Oh, I don't like that. I'm guessing, we'll have a look at that on the plastic, but I'm guessing it's marked clearly. I hate having to start hacking away with scalpels, to be honest. But I suspect with Kotare that they've shown you exactly what to do. And then we've got the slats. What do they call them? Handley page slats, they call them, don't they? I think they designed it, didn't they? Pretty sure that's right. And then we've got the slats and the flaps. So you start off with the slats, and you've got the choice of retracted or deployed. Main planes and fuselage assembly, where you bring them together. The wing looks quite skinny on this aircraft, I think. It's, yeah, compared to a Spitfire even. Then we've got the radiators being assembled here. And I think you've got the option of open or closed radiators quite clearly. I think that's great detail about how to paint them. This is what I love about Kotare. Make no corners are cut. No corners are cut. Well, apart from an engine. But in terms of actually telling you how to build it, this is absolutely. Yeah, I haven't built one yet, and I'm going to. But I'm guessing that if you get it wrong, it's a bit like Tamiya. If you get it wrong, you must be an idiot, or you made a blunder somewhere because you can't. They're so clear in their explanation here. How it can open or close radiators, how it should look before and after. Two options, quite clear. Ailerons and flaps over here. So you can see there how they're going in on the wing, the trailing edge of the wing. Split flaps on the inboard, standard flaps slightly further out. Talking about the Balkan cross. And then mounting now, this is what I love about them, look at this, mounting angles of the undercarriage and doors. And the moraine aerial. The moraine aerial. From the fin to the fuselage. I'm just going to read this here. So it's saying that many subject matters experts believe the aerial was made of wood and the metal wire aerial sandwiched between the wood components, projecting out of the bottom of the mast. Huh. Which mast? They're talking about this one, aren't they? They're talking about the moraine aerial, so that's the one underneath. Oh yeah, interesting. There's a lot of debate, it sounds like, about the history and exactly how it's constructed. Then you got your main undercarriage with your main gear, legs and your doors going in here. They have gone for split wheels, which everybody will know from our recent talk about the Stalwart I'm not a fan of. Although I suspect the engineering on this might be a little bit, might be pretty good really. I still prefer to see them in one piece these days, like lots of manufacturers manage to do it. And then you've got the, shows you how they go in very clearly and how they should sit. Of course this aircraft has a slightly odd attitude, a slightly splay-legged attitude, which made it actually very tricky to land. A very inboard mounting with legs splayed out, so if you hit a bump or you're on uneven ground it could cause it to cartwheel to one side. Quite dangerous, unlike something like a Hurricane which had a very wide stance legs. It's kind of like the Spitfire, isn't it, this? But I think it's actually worse because certainly a lot of pilots were lost in accidents. And then we've got the spinner and the prop, and then we've got our option here because we know the kit comes with some 3D printed resin. But I'll bet you that the 3D printed resin isn't a country mile better than the plastic. We'll see. It's often the case with these. The plastic is really high standard and the 3D resin is just a little bit better. And then you're going to put those on, put your radiators on, put your prop and your spinner on. And what's it saying here? Late production K4. Theoretically, the default spinner appearance was a sprayed white 1/3 segment on the spinner that bordered the propeller blade as here. Oh, okay. I can't see any white there. I'm missing something. There's a sprayed white 1/3 segment. So this is just so you can see whether it's spinning or not, isn't it? Because they didn't used to paint the tips of their blades yellow like the Allies did, so you could see whether they were spinning. They used to actually paint the spinner. And I suppose, it might be easy to see from a distance, I don't know. Can't imagine that's easier to see at night though. Which probably tells you they do a lot of night operations in these particular planes anyway. Then we've got some more details coming in here. We've got the this underside of the wing. Now they do make great play about the detail on the underside of the wing, being very good in this. Starboard wing underside detail captured from a captured K4. You can see the mast balancer on the aileron, and you can see the style of the Balkenkreuz, and thick removable outer panel. The base of the moraine aerial, which is the one underneath. Well, that's interesting. It's highly likely this would be painted the same as the underside colour. Yeah, of course. And then you've got your the gear doors, the outer door flaps going in, and your moraine aerial going on. A couple of photographs just to support that. Transparencies and gun sight. Look at this. Look at that. So what you've got here is your bulletproof glass, and then your Revi 16B gun sight going in. Then you've got the on the open canopy. This is the little bit of bulletproof. Oh, okay, I didn't realise they had bulletproof glass installed within the armour plating section on these late models. I didn't know that actually. I've not seen that before. So it's actually got a bulletproof glass window. Must have restricted the visibility a bit there behind, surely. Can't imagine that was great for looking backwards, but anyway. But yes, it's got a separate bulletproof screen at the back as well. I've never seen that before. And then you've got your side tilting opening canopy. And as you can see there, there's a little bit of rigging for the that just supports the canopy in the open position. And then there's two different designs, of course, of actual canopy glass. There's this rather sort of sporty looking, almost half bubble. Oops, let's go back. Or is that with and without? Oh, I'm not sure what the difference is actually there. I'm trying to understand that. I think that's the open position. No, sorry, it's my mistake. It's just that this is the option. That was the open position option. This is the closed position option. I didn't quite read it. It says closed canopy there. So that's the closed canopy. So two different versions. And you've got like a hydraulic wire. I think it's probably just an indicator to show whether it's open or shut. And then here we've got one the Americans are inspecting. It doesn't say where, in fact, does it? No, it doesn't. Unidentified K-4 White 81. Americans looking at the various unconfirmed camouflage colours. It's probably black and white, isn't it, really? Then we've got the Pale Raman 16, the PR16 loop antenna, a direction finding antenna. This is used in conjunction with the FUG radio system, which goes on the top, little hoop aerial, famous hoop aerial. And then you've got here another IFF aerial down bottom right of the fuselage. And the IFF aerial was an electronic system designed to allow the aircraft it carried to be identified as friendly by first the Würzburg and later the Freyr radars of the Luftwaffe Defence Electronic Systems. Anecdotal evidence from JG-26 pilots suggests that while the aerial might have been generally fitted, the electronic systems that it needed were not necessarily in place. Oh, great. This was especially true in the chaotic last months of the war. And the system was manufactured by GEMA, Geschäft für Elektronik-Akustische and Mechanische Apparate. Gosh, pushing myself there a bit. And then over here we've got one that's obviously been downed. Has it been downed or has it just been stripped? Looks like it might have been downed, this one to me. Early production example, high camouflage demarcation line. The rare all black swastika on the tail ends indicate it was another aircraft from the 3302 serial number range, as seen on page 43. Hints to disruption in deliveries from the regular subcontractor at the time. Okay. Then we've got a little bit of aerial rigging, of course, for our radio aerials. So we've got the two different types. Obviously, there's two versions. There's the aerial wires that go to the aerial, the main radio aerial on top of the canopy, and then. And by the way, when I said that was probably a hydraulic switch telling you that the canopy was open or closed, I think I'm wrong. I think it was the radio aerial, wasn't it? When you saw that wiring that went up into the openable canopy, it was the wiring for the aerial to go out. Of course it would. I'm getting there slowly. Aerial wires. This is the more standard, the type that goes through and that doesn't have the post on top of the canopy. It says there's two different versions. The near vertical orientated wire entering the fuselage was the component that actually connected to the radio set. Oh, okay. And then we've got drop tanks and rack assembly over here. Typical Luftwaffe central drop tank. Placement of the main undercarriage retraction jacks, which powers up the undercarriage to lift it, obviously. And then weathering on the underside, examples here. This is quite nice. It's a little bit of corrosion where the fasteners are. And then we get into some of the detail stuff, talking about the stencils. So here we go, lots of stencil detail going in there, including on the propellers, tailplanes, and the underside. Very nicely detailed that. Again on the top, around the top of the wings and the top of the fuselage in front of the canopy, and on the flaps, on the undercarriage legs, and of course the leading edge of the wings. Quite a lot of detail there. And then we get into the colour call-outs, and here we go. So you basically built your kit. I'll tell you one thing I didn't pay attention to was, we'll see that later. So this is the one in January 45, like a winter type of scheme, a wintry scheme. Actually, this is the one that's got that. I thought it was to confuse or cover up the German markings, but it wasn't. So that's the one that has the green on it. And again, some wonderful reference photographs. Regensburg factory here, the original factory, because they changed the tyres on these, didn't they? They actually had to go for much fatter, bigger tyres because of they were getting heavier and the loads on the undercarriage, and they were having a lot of burst tyres and undercarriage failure, so they increased the tyre size over things like the G6 anyway. And then yes, into lots of details here. Again, some wonderful photographs here about the Americans pouring all over salvage. Oh, being salvaged post-war. It's probably not the Americans then. Just showing some different examples of different camo. And then we've got the doesn't say the location here. Oh yes, it is Nemeki Brod. That's Czech Republic, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Or is it Slovakia? Somewhere around there. And then different finishes. Very much sort of almost homemade looking camo, isn't it? Late war, urgently, hastily done. And another example of it right there, which is the same aircraft, I think, isn't it? And then over here, this is Adolf Borchers, born in 1913 for the First World War, wasn't he? Borchers aircraft. So the chevron markings, lots of detail. So it's a low quality photograph. I'm sort of almost apologising for the photo quality, but it does show one or two details showing the half painted spinner. Interesting. And then we've got this captured American one here, where the Americans have done this rather half-hearted overpainting, painting over the swastika. In this case, it is legitimate, and yeah, I think that it's quite an interesting scheme. Is that something very different, isn't it? I'd be very tempted. And here you can see it's got faded out German markings, but the American stars and bars on the other side. And it's got the USAF cockades. That's the correct term, isn't it? Well, the cockades are the round ones, aren't they, without the bars. So the stars, if you like. In a bit of a state some of these are, and then there's another shot of, which one is that? This one here. This one? No, this one. It's quite a sleek looking aircraft, isn't it? That change of the cockpit design certainly makes it look a lot sleeker. And here you can see them looking underneath, bit like my diorama some of you saw on my G6, with the flap open underneath, the access flap for the radiator. Note the oil filler tank stenciled. Oil filler tank, that's here. Downward facing exhaust shield. Downward facing exhaust shield here. That was to stop them being blinded by it at night. The flame from the exhaust. Nothing to do with heat really. And the oil cooler facing. Auxiliary tank, you can see it very clearly in that photograph. And the huge, larger 660 by 190 tyres. See how much fatter they are, these tyres. If you look back at my G6 model, you can see they're a lot slimmer, the tyres on the G6 model. And then over here we've got another cracking photo with an American crawling all over it after the war's finished. American GI at Gardelegen. He's believed to be a very late production version in April 45. Gosh. Bulge fairings on the wings for the enlarged tyres. That's what the bulging is for. I wonder what the bulging is for. So they've actually had to bulge up the top of the wing to accommodate the extra large tyres because they're so much fatter. Okay. Wow. Wavy camouflage. That's a good photo, that. Good photo. And then we've got a couple of others here where the American GI have been inspecting this one. Belly landed. Suffered a belly landing before being fitted with replacement wheels. most likely taken from an early production. And then loaded onto a railway wagon. Okay. Yeah, it shows that there's a nice photo of the Moraine aerial there underneath the wing. And then looks like we've got the RAF here, is it? Pretty sure that's Royal Air Force chap there that's inspecting it. Lindsay Richards standing via Malcolm Laird. Yeah, he's got a camera, so he's obviously from the Royal Air Force Intelligence Unit. Yeah. Wow, well, that's very impressive. That's it, really. The one thing that I think I should have read out, which I've sort of come to realise now, is it probably tells you here somewhere that it probably mentions about this thing about the tyres, which I didn't read the entire technical detail. Yeah, here we go. One major change on them over the G models was the much bigger tyres. This was necessary to cope with the increased weight of the aircraft, particularly to allow the fitment of the bigger brakes. Improved ground handling was an ancillary benefit, but this necessitated the bulge upper wing skin, which is what makes it look slightly odd. But rather than use circular or oval bulges like the Spitfire and the early 109s, they did a long chord rectangular bulge, so in sort of aerodynamic direction. Remarkably, these had been aerodynamically tested pre-war in the Aeronautical Research Institute near Braunschweig, as was one of the most advanced in the world in 1939. So they'd actually tested it. Obviously, decided it was maybe they decided it was too expensive, and then they later went back to what they obviously thought was a good design. Anyway, there we go. More than enough of the instructions. I've got to say though, you will not find better instructions on any kit. The only people who really come close are Zukimura with their Super Wing series, but theirs can be a little bit confusing, a little bit busy because they have it in Japanese and English and all this kind of thing. But that is just in English. Now I think a lot of manufacturers, I don't expect every manufacturer, I know I was going on about this, but of course I don't expect that standard from an Airfix kit, for example, or a Revell kit at £30. You can't expect that, it'll cost a fortune. But when you're charging £100 or more, yes, I do think we expect that. I do think we do. Every bit of data that is known, you feel is in that booklet. How wonderful is that? Yeah, the colours are there. It even shows you the colours visually in illustrations, and it just doesn't get any better than that. I think that Kotare have got the best instructions in the world, and if even people were even half as good as that elsewhere, I'd be a lot happier. But anyway, let's get into the plastic, which is what you're all really waiting for. Before some of these people, the same trolls who say to me, do you ever actually build in these? All you do is reviews, you never build it. Well, how would you know? Okay. And then I also get this other comment, 40 minutes in or whatever it is, probably longer than that now, and you still haven't showed us the plastic. Well, if you want to see a quick snapshot, then go somewhere else. Okay. Sorry, but I know that most of you that are tuning into this like to hear the history. You want to see it poured over in a critical but open-minded way, and you want to see it up close and detailed, and that's exactly what you get here. And let us, on that vein, have a look at this beautiful 3D printed engine exhausts and heat shields. So as you look at it, we're looking at it from, that way. That's the top of the end. Top is up now, and these are, you can see that there is more shielding on one side than the other. Now why is that actually? There must be a reason, I'm not quite... You can see there's more shielding there, here, on that side, than there is on the other. Is that because... Is that because... I'm not sure why that would be. Why they would want to have more one side than the other. I know why. It's because it's got the intake. They're trying to keep... Yeah, this is the side that has the supercharger intake, engine intake. So they've got a little bit more shielding to prevent any heat affecting the intake. That's what it is. This side is the starboard side, and this side is the port side. But, I mean, really? Look at this. Let's get a little bit closer. They are absolutely beautiful, and I'm not sure if you can actually see this on the camera because the camera isn't that close to me. But they have a bit like the Spitfire. They have a fishtail. Sorry, not a fishtail, but the whole thing is a fishtail shape. But it has a weld up the centre, a bit like the Spitfire Mark 9 does. And they have indeed reproduced that weld. Can you see that? They have done this very, very nicely, actually. I'm not always a fan of 3D printing, but I think that's definitely worthy of the kit. Most impressive. So that is your 3D printed resin exhaust, which you get if you pre-order this kit. You get that thrown in, which is very, very beautiful. Yeah, I'm impressed. Does it give any instructions? It has a... Oh, it does. Let me just show you that. So it's fairly simple. The fitting of it's not very complicated, obviously. You just stick them in place of the standard kit parts. Simple. And then on this side there's a couple of photographs just showing it, and some colour. It gives you some hints about the colours as well. But again, colours, you know. I mean, exhaust colours were not universal in terms of how they would look in the field. Because if you've had some mechanic wiping them down when they're cold and cleaning them off and wiping them down with some, I don't know, WD-40 or an oil rag or something, you'll get this patina when it gets hot again. They get different patinas depending on what they've been touched by, you know. So you can often get different sort of shades, appearances, just depending on what it's been in contact with, really. Anyway, let's get into the proper plastic. Now I have to be, again, please be patient because this is Stewart's kit and it's going straight up to him when I finish with it. And we have got to try to, I'm going to try and make it so it's resined for him nicely. To achieve that, we have to cut it with a little bit of care. He says, the blade is getting a little bit blunt. I think that blade is getting, I don't think it's blunt, I think it's just caked up with glue from sticky tape. Here we go then. Oh, now then. Right, let's zoom you in. What I was just squinting at was there's one exhaust stack, and I have a feeling there's several different exhaust stacks in the kit. But that exhaust stack, it's kind of irrelevant when you've got the aftermarket, but it's not quite as nice, is it? It's not as nice. It's not as open. Can you see that? Sorry, I'm looking in the wrong place now. It's not as open, is it? Not quite as nice. But look at the rest of it. So here's the actual sprue overall. I'll give you an overview of it. So that's the whole sprue. So we're going to take a slow go around here because I'm very conscious that when I do this sometimes, I don't care if people think it's too long. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. But I want you to see the maximum detail here that I can physically show. So this is the sort of cup for the tail wheel, I think, at the back. And then you've got your main fuselage. No removable cowl, sadly, because it hasn't got an engine, which we have discussed. And then you've got the two optional different types of back of the cockpit wall, if you will, where the canopy fits. Then you've got your big cannon breech. That's nice. Then you've got, this is obviously the, just showing the exhaust, but this is exhaust here, and this is the exhaust cover. Oh, actually it's got the exhaust underneath, I didn't spot that. So it's got the exhaust underneath on this version, built in with the actual heat shield on the top of it. But they aren't as good, are they? They're still pretty good though, actually. They are hollowed out a little bit, but it's not quite the same. And then over here we've got this. This is where sometimes I have mixed feelings about this with Kotare, because I like the concept, this is where they're putting all the detail on the walls of the cockpit already, so you don't have to add all this detail, but it does make it an absolute nightmare to paint, doesn't it? I mean, I did, obviously with my Spitfire Mark 9, which is the example I always give, where I was able to get, not perfection, but a very high standard of detail painting within that cockpit, which would be really, really difficult to do, I think, with this one, to the same sharpness. By the way, can we see down there? That's the... I don't know if the light's catching this just right. Have I got a torch? I am. Can I shine this down here? Can you see? It's the intake for the supercharger, and you can see the veins of it. The supercharger veins. Can you make that out? I don't know if it's really working this. Down the hole. I think you get the gist. I think you get it. There you go, see it better now, I think. Anyway, yeah, I say, having all this detail is all well and good, and it makes it a quicker build, but you don't necessarily find it as easy to get the finesse of the detail. Picking out the individual parts, things like wires and piping, conduits, is very tricky to do. It's very tricky to do. It's a bit like Tamiya with their F35 on any scale, but especially the 48 scale one. Because if you think about it, you've got all that incredible detail, but you've got to go in there and you've got to do every wire and conduit and line and pipe. It's very hard to paint them. Very hard to paint them to get the really crisp edge that you probably want. Right, I'm going to look at the clear parts. Come on, the blade is just not starting well. Clear parts now, Kotare are usually excellent on these. And they are again here. Wonderful. Kotare, ICM, Tamiya are kind of the kings at this, I think. Look at this. Ooh, yes, so you've got your open cockpit or your closed options. Now then. Now why are there two closed options? Not entirely clear. They don't look different to me. They don't. Those two look the same. Am I missing something? They're very beautiful. There's your open version. On the other side, flip it over. Yeah, they've done a good job here. Beautiful. Same on the front. That's manufactured to a very, very high standard indeed. I mean, there's just no distortion, even in the front. Even in the front windscreen, there's just no distortion to speak of there, really. And you've got all your bulletproof glass over here. Bulletproof screens, front and rear. That's the rear one, and that's the front one. That's beautiful. Lovely, lovely clear parts. What do you think? Yeah? Nice? Nice, nice, nice. I like those. It's ironic actually, this, because of the way they go about doing this pre-moulded in detail, it makes reviewing the plastic relatively quick, considering what a big expensive kit it is. Because you haven't got a zillion sprues. Now then, let's look at this one, see if I can cut it better. Okay. Yes, nice clean cut this time. So, we've got the propeller, which looks gorgeous. Look at this. What a beautiful propeller that is. That's stunning. Look at that. Nice paddle prop, complete with the bosses. That's just brilliant. I don't think it gets any better than this, does it? I don't think it does. They've put the sprue gate contact point just in the right position, not on the blade itself. Absolutely exquisite that is. You've got weight on wheels tyres. with these much fatter tyres that they talked about on the previous versions of the aircraft. Got your instrument panel here, rudders over here, tail planes, and you've got your supercharger stroke air intake there. This is your lower chin for the radiator and the oil cooler, and that is beautifully moulded. I've got to say, that's just gorgeous. Fantastic. Got your wheel hubs here, central hubs, and then you've got this. I think this is the one you don't use, but there's a second. Again, let's just zoom back and just talk about this very quickly. Look at the way they've created this sprue to be universal sized with the others. I moaned about this with the Epic Star War. But instead of doing all higgledy-piggledy, they've kept them attached here with bracing points. So they've kept them attached there to create an overall homogeneous size of sprue. So the sprues are all overall the same size. So it goes in the box, it doesn't rattle around. Very good. Excellent. Really like that. There's also an alternative instrument panel, but I think that's for a different model, so we'll ignore that one. Beautiful parts. Stunning. I've got a feeling it's just going to get better and better. Now we're coming to quite an important one, which is the one that's got this lower wing in it, which they were very proud of their lower wing detail, they were saying. So let's have a look at that. Yep, another clean cut. Getting better at this. Oh, yes. Yes, some mega detail here. Check this out. Check out the wheel bay. First of all, look at some of the fine detail there. Look at that. Oh, yes. The wheel leg covers. Same on this side. Again, fantastic detail. The riveting is just exquisite around here. Look at this. Then we've got, I'll zoom back slightly. Then we've got our lower wing detail, which they're very proud about the accuracy of this. And it's interesting the way it's got this almost two-tone finishes to the different panels. That will replicate well, I think, even when you've painted it. I think that's going to be really cool because you get a slight differentiation in the way the paint will bond. So I think that's going to look really amazing. Yeah, all the access panels and little hatches, inspection hatches for the fuel. And then of course you've got your top wing with these great big bulges to accommodate the extra large size of those tyres. It's strange that they've done it in that shape though, isn't it? I'm sure that's done for aerodynamics. Nothing to do with reflecting the actual shape of the wheels and tyres beneath with these extra large tyres. So they obviously felt it was lower drag having it longer like that. And then you got the flaps and slats here and here. Gorgeous. Absolutely brilliant. I think that's very nice. You don't get injection moulding any better than that, do you? It's very much reminded me of some of the latest ICM stuff actually. Yeah, like the Marauder. Similar to that, isn't it? In standard terms, it's so crisp. Clean, crisp, very clear. There's no sink marks, that's for sure. We know that Kotare are using the Chinese to manufacture the actual injection moulding. I suspect, without a doubt in my mind, can't be absolutely sure, but pretty convinced it'll be the same people that were doing the wing nut wings. Even though it still looks the same, doesn't it? It'll be the same extruder that did the wing nut wings work, I'm sure. And then this is the last sprue actually, because as I said, it's probably not going to be such a long build, but this is probably saving the best for last because we've got some incredible detail here. Now we have got this This is the cannon barrel in effect that goes through, down. How straight is that? Is that me? Has that got a slight warp to it? Not that it's a matter because it's not visible. It just exits there, the cannon barrel. And that's the actual muzzle of the barrel, of course, coming out through the spinner. Isn't that nice? Look how sharp is that? Sharp as you like. And then you've got a little bit of the top of the tail, isn't it, I think? And then we have got some of these really detailed parts, so things like the trim wheels, and of course we have these ejector pin lugs, which are, you remove them obviously, ejector pin lugs to prevent any ejection pin marks on the actual plastic itself. And then we've got the tail, retractable tail gear assembly, if indeed it does retract, depends on which way the wind is blowing. And then you've got your radiator covers here, and your little radiator flaps, open or closed flaps for the radiators, and then you've got your flaps on the wings, inboard split flaps, and here in the open position. And then look at this. Now this is really impressive. I need to zoom in a little bit more for this. Look at that. You've actually got the hydraulic lines for the brakes, and it's moulded into the gear leg. See that? Oh, it goes in a little loop here. Look at that. That's beautiful. That has been really well done. I like that indeed. And then, perhaps best of all, check this out, your seat options, sir. With or without belts. Now these belts are just sublime. I mean, look at that. And they are very thin, kind of very scale-like. I think that's pretty nice. I don't think you need to bother with any belts buying any aftermarket on this one. Just don't need to at all. Look at that. That's fantastic. We've got our drop tank. Very, very nicely rendered, that is. Beautiful. And then you've got your marine mast, aerial mast here. Goes under the wing. And anything else? Anything else significant? We've got the elevators here. Oops, got the wrong way. Elevators. Trim tabs at the back. All moulded in one piece, as you can see. Oof. It's gorgeous, isn't it? You know, it's just flawless. There's not a sink mark to be seen anywhere. There just isn't. Sometimes they get these shadows in the plastic. You see them here and there. They're not sink. It's just the plastic has. The pellets are probably a mixture of different pellets, and they're just cooled at slightly different rates. But they've got their pressures right here, and I think this is what I think we're all agreed about with the Airfix Stalwart, that the pressures of the moulds looked wrong, didn't they? The pressures weren't high enough, and it wasn't getting enough plastic in to fill the mould. Then as soon as the pressure is released, this sinks, and that's where the sink expression comes from, because it does actually sink back. So I'm just not showing you the radiators, which I should have shown you. I sort of skimped over those. Just check these out. Radiators here. Those are nice, aren't they? And then you've got your gun barrels here. Your cannons on the top of the nose. Those slide molded. Now they haven't slide moulded those, which is a slight disappointment, perhaps. You see the muzzle, right? Aren't they? Yeah. Yeah, they haven't slide moulded the muzzle. It isn't got a hollowed out muzzle, which is a little bit of a disappointment because you need to drill that out. But you know, if you're that way inclined, I suspect if you're like me, you'll probably get a couple of aftermarket gun barrels from Master Model or somebody anyway, and that will resolve your problem really. And that's kind of it really. You've got the mounting point there for the carrying the drop tank. And then I say you've got those the tail wheel parts there and the trim wheels and things. But what beautiful plastic! Flaw free, flash free, sink free. Perfection, as it should be really in 2025, you know. I mean, people have defended the problems that Airfix have with the Star Wars. I don't understand it, because they've already proven that that's not the way they intended it to be, and the comments they've made, and the Jaguar didn't suffer from those issues, did it? It's not 1971. We don't accept stuff like that anymore. Come on. Yeah, some people just defend the indefensible, I think. But what was really a great conceived kit there is still got ongoing problems. I'm hoping they get on top of it, but I am still waiting to get any communication from them. I've had initial communication from Dale, in fact. But I'm still waiting for any more. I've contacted him since and had no response. So at time of writing, so this is now Saturday lunchtime. We'll see what happens. So I shall reserve my judgment until later. But I will probably come back and have some further words to say about that. But I digress. So what we have here, digressing onto something else, which should be, that is, frankly, it's whether you can get past the only two criticisms are the German symbols, which I was a little bit frustrated. I think that's they've made a bit of a crazy choice. You know, they've put in there a disclaimer almost about the nature of that regime, which I think says it beautifully, and yet, you know, that would be perfectly allied to showing the cross, or at least being able to make up that symbol to make it an accurate portrayal of this aircraft. Nothing to do with the morality about it. They seem to have copped out, and that is very, very disappointing, and I think that's a mistake. Why have they done that? Because they do. I mean, I can't believe that ICM don't sell their kits in Germany, and they find a way around it that is workable. That's not really workable, apart from having to go out and get aftermarket, I think. So that's a little bit annoying. I mentioned the lack of engine, and there's those guns that weren't drilled out, that weren't slide moulded. So that's I think they could have maybe done more there, because again, most people doing things at this scale have got probably a slide moulded gun barrel, or throw in some master model gun barrels, you know. So what am I going to give it? I think that I've got to say that the instructions are probably the best instructions of any kit I've ever seen, really. I mean, they're right up there with their previous work and the Wing That Wings product. 10 out of 10 for the instructions, no question. 11 out of 10, frankly. They're beautiful. Work of art, no stone left unturned, no guesswork whatsoever. You learn about the actual aircraft as you go through. Absolutely brilliant. If only others would take on even half of that. So I give them a massive thumbs up for that. I say I would have preferred an engine. I think that, you know, the fact that Tamiya provided a 48 scale engine, which was nice, and looks great. But I did promise I wouldn't mark them down for the engine, so I'm going to have to just park that. So I'm not going to judge them on that. I'm just going to judge them on the plastic. I think it's a 9.75 out of 10. A lot of you will probably think 10 out of 10. I may be being a bit nitpicky, I don't know, but it's a beautiful product. Beautiful. And I wasn't that excited about this release just because of the model of 109 it is, really. Did we need another 109? Oh, I want to just say something I didn't say at the start as well. I think the artwork is a big improvement as well on what we've seen before. Is it Darryl Legg again? I think it probably is. Not quite sure. Doesn't seem to be signed by him. But I think that one or two of the previous ones that we've had on the Spitfires have been a bit dour and a bit down. This has got a little bit more action and an energy about it. Probably seen, I don't know if this is a Mustang or Thunderbolt pilot that's in a furball with this 109. I suspect that is the case. But I like that. That's got a bit more pizzazz, a bit more energy. It looks a bit less like a Turner painting, a bit more modern looking, a bit more live looking, if you know what I mean. It's just got better lighting and everything. Everything's better. Everything's better. Now, by the way, it did come. I should have explained this, which I didn't. I forgot, but it did come with that, which is what I need to mention about the artwork. It comes with the print as well. You get a print. However, annoyingly, on Stewart's example, it came with this bit of it's not a major deal killer, but I'll just show you. It came with a crease in it, and the only reason it has this crease is they stuffed this. It wasn't in the box with the kit. It was separate in the outer box, and they'd stuffed this in, but they hadn't stuffed it in enough, and then they didn't do a brilliant job, I've got to be honest, of actually packing the flaps. So what they've done is they've actually brought the flaps down like that and creased it just there. And it has got a little bit of a scuff on it as well. So again, I'm not going to mark them down for that. That's just somebody being clumsy in the packaging department. But that's not done it any favours. But it's a beautiful bit of work. It is Darrell Legg, by the way. It does actually say now. Don't know if you can spot that. It's actually signed here by him. There, see it? There we go. So yeah, it's Walter Kopp. Yes. Now that's a really nice image. So to Darrell Legg I say, yes, can we have more like this please? A bit more action, a bit more energy, and a bit brighter and lighter and less like it's a pastiche of itself. It's a real nice, getting a bit more toward the sort of Roy Cross style, do you know what I mean? Roy Huxley maybe. I like that. I think that's a big improvement. So yes, I like the product. Just a shame about that creasing, but I know that Stewart's not too worried about it. I don't think he's going to frame it or anything. I'm going to give it 9.75 out of 10. I think that's a fair score. I think just one or two reservations, but overall I think it's going to build beautifully and fairly quickly actually. It won't be a long build because of the way they've gone about it. They're trying to help you all the time with information. They're trying to make the build experience pleasant. They're trying to make it not overcomplicated. And an educational experience thrown into boot. And it's £100 now. I think that's actually very good value. Just wish they'd put an engine in. I just wish they'd start to go and understand that people would prefer an engine. Whether they obviously think that it wouldn't sell better with the engine, I don't know. I think it would. I think it would. When you see what Tamiya achieved with the 48 scale, I'm sure that they do a beautiful job of an engine on this. So maybe in the future they can release a with engine option on all these kits they've done. I don't know. Don't know if it's on their radar or not, but I have to say, I am delighted Kotare are here. I think that kit has exceeded my expectations by a chunk, to be honest. And I like it. I do like it. Yeah, no question. And it's got some interesting features. And again, I've learned stuff about the 109 I hadn't learned before. And if that had been built by Border or Riffield or somebody like that, I wouldn't have learned very much. I wouldn't have understood what I was looking at. It wouldn't have been explained to me. And I don't want to become a full-time researcher because they can't be bothered. These chaps at Kotare are doing the job for us. Yeah, professional. You know, an all-encompassing complete package, which is what I want personally, especially for £100. Well done, Kotare. Well done. It would be a 10 out of 10, but for the creasing and the the non-slide molded gun barrels and that symbol on the tail, I'm not happy with that really. I think that's a silly little thing that I don't see the logic of it, you know. And the explanation that will get thrown up again is about Germany, and I think that ICM get around it, so and others get around it. So that doesn't really work for me. I think they're overthinking it, to be honest. Way overthinking it. Anyway, thank you very much to Stewart Neale, because it's his kit. I'm a bit annoyed that the crease is there. I can promise you, Stuart. In fact, it is actually all the way along. So they put it. What they did, they forced it down next to the box, and they went with the flap and condemned it to a crease. Such a shame, because it is a nice picture. Anyway, thank you to Stuart, because it's really nice of him that he's. Thanks, mate. That he's given us that first, and he hasn't seen it himself yet. So really appreciate that. Nice to get something fresh from the shipper. Hope you thought this was an interesting review, and you'll give me a thumbs up, give me a like. It all helps the channel, and the channel needs a bit of help actually. I'm going to talk about that in another episode coming soon. There's going to be some changes, I think. Not changes as in, I'll rephrase that. There won't be any changes, but there's going to be developments. I'm going to develop this channel, but without altering what those of you love about it. I'm going to make sure it advances and it doesn't change in any way from what you're enjoying at the moment, but there'll be additional developments. Let's put that. I won't go into any more detail right now. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you really enjoyed it and found it interesting. I would certainly recommend this kit to you without reservation, because I think it's just mind-blowing quality, great fun to sort of go through that instruction book. Is quite remarkable, and there's quite a lot of it I didn't read out to you. There's lots more that I didn't go through because we'd be here for 3 hours, you know. But I really think that you should get into it. If that's of any interest to you at all, this is definitely the kit for you. So thank you very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you again in the very near future. Until next time, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already and ding the notification bell. But until next time, stay well, stay safe. Thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Thanks a lot, and bye for now.